Hi.
Hi.
Welcome back. I'm in a good mood today.
Oh, good.
I'm in a very good mood today because I've only had coffee to drink all day long.
It's your ideal day. And we're having my favorite kind of day, which is a seamless handoff from coffee to wine.
A coffee wine day.
Or alcohol of any kind, which is great. Hey, this is Amrita and Andrew. We're on a podcast journey to find our way through freelance life. If you're thinking about taking a leap off the beaten path in any part of your life, our totally inexpert advice is don't think twice. So tell me about some of the things you wanted to catch me up on.
I try to keep notes these days to tell you things. Although when we see each other, I usually tell you the most interesting things. So my list is pretty sad. But,
oh gosh, well.
But there are a few things I learned. Like this week, and I'm not joking you, I figured out that Harry Connick Jr. and Jerry O'Connell are actually two different people.
Oh wow, this is a landmark week for you.
I never.
Wait, hang on. Let me think about that for a minute. Jerry O'Connell.
Mm-hmm.
Married to Rebecca Romaine.
Yeah,
I was about to say Stamos, but formerly.
Romaine, yeah.
Yes, and Harry Connick Jr. Harry Connick Jr. actually has a talk show, which I just recently learned.
This is how I figured out that Harry Connick Jr. is different than Jerry O'Connell.
And his talk show is absurd.
I thought Harry Connick Jr. was Harry Connick Jr. when he sang jazz, and then he was Jerry O'Connell when he was acting.
Wait, no, you didn't.
But it turns out they're two different people.
This takes white man face blindness to a new and shocking level. And I really want to do a side-by-side comparison of the two just so that you can be assured that they don't look alike.
I actually like Jerry O'Connell and Harry Connick Jr. as people.
There's something actually also similar about maybe it's the Connick and Connell or something, but there's something about it that seems like you could make a portmanteau of both of their names and then they could just be one unholy
just
person.
Cheery.
Yes.
That's kind of like when I'm
really glad you
figured
shared
out that
me.
Leah Remini wasn't the star of The Cutting Edge.
You know what? I actually had that revelation also.
This is the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and it was as an adult, not too long ago. Maybe we had this revelation together, but this was a serious moment of realization for me.
Yeah, I had to rethink
That's
my
such
entire
a great
childhood.
movie.
It's a really good movie.
I gotta revisit that. There's a TV show that is some sort of, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a TV show that when you're going through the guide on cable, it always comes up as it's called The Cutting Edge, and then I always think just for a moment that it's gonna be that movie, and then I'm always disappointed that it's something about stocks or
Stupid,
something.
Yeah. Yesterday I was trying to get out of the house and Bring It On was on, and if I see a movie like Bring It On or Dirty Dancing or something like that on the TV guide, I can resist it because I know what it is and I have to get out of the house. But it's different if this channel is
on there. Yeah,
it's
you
just
can't.
on.
Yeah,
it's I was late to leave the house because I just couldn't turn
my eyes away. And then you were just paralyzed. Yeah, absolutely. No, so there's the Case of Mistaken Identity with the cut. So yes, those are certain movies. Those are the three you named actually. Pretty solidly will never ever be able to not watch them when they're on TV. Yeah. But so the Cutting Edge is one I always think is on TV that's not.
Yes.
There's another one, Center Stage. There's some sort of show called Center Stage. It's never actually the movie Center Stage, but I always want it to be. And then the other one is something that I invented, which is that there's this show, it's called American Pickers, and in my mind I want it to be about banjo players, and every time I see it on there, I'm like, oh, yes, this sounds great. I totally want to watch banjo players. And then it turns out that it's about secondhand stores. Yeah, people who go through through storage lockers and sell stuff. And it's such a disappointment. It's a fresh disappointment every time. What else?
For anyone who cares, anyone who's listening, just know that I'm in a good spot employment-wise right now.
Oh, great.
Just want to say that.
Yeah, we've been following along with bated breath your unemployment trajectory.
Yeah. I've been doing
No,
stuff
I
here
mean,
and
seriously.
there, but yeah.
Yeah, because
but
it's kind of exciting.
And yeah, no, it's I'm in a good space, and that's all I need to say about that.
Well, I just think it's like it's something that I was really scared of, like going into like quitting my full-time job was just the idea of like, what's gonna happen if I'm ever in a position where it's like, I don't know where my rent is gonna come from, like how will I manage that? And it really, like, something will come up. And that seems to be how it was for you, and you kind of just like waited it out and weren't stressed out about it at all. And
so everyone can now sleep better than they have been.
That's great. Well, congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you.
First of many more exciting professional ventures, I'm sure, in the coming year.
First of many.
So I was going to tell you something.
Oh, please.
About a show that I went to.
A real live show.
A live show. A performance.
Okay.
That caused me to realize something about myself.
Continue.
This is like less dramatic than you think it is.
Oh.
So I went to this show. It was...
Did you burp all the way through it?
No. God. You really want my like big personal revelation to be that I'm a burpier person than I ever have acknowledged.
It's rude.
Yeah, totally rude. Just, So no, I went to the show. It was a friend of ours who was doing a one-man show. And, I think I told you a little bit about the content of the show. It's really not important. It has nothing to do with him, and it has nothing to do with the content of the show. But there was a component to the show that involved, like, calling somebody up from the audience. And he just identified a person that initially, like, I was like, oh, was this prearranged? Mm-hmm. Did they talk about this in advance? Because the guy handled it really, really, really well. He was like, hey, you, like, come up here, read this letter. So it just got me thinking about audience participation, which I know is something that neither of us prefers. But for me, this was a moment where I realized that I don't just dislike it, but I think I might actually have a phobia of audience participation because...
For yourself or other people?
Just generally the whole concept of it, because I spent like the rest of the show like... stressed out that it was going to happen again.
You probably smelled like onions.
My stress sweat does smell like onions.
Yeah, everyone's does.
Oh, man. Oh, okay. I thought you were calling me out.
Yeah, no, the other day someone was stress sweating, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to stand too close to you because my sweat stinks. And her sweat really did stink, but I was like, no, you're fine. You don't smell at all. But she really smelled like onions.
This is a stranger?
No.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so I was at the show. I was super stressed about the whole situation. For like the entire rest of the show, it was like sort of a low-level buzz
because you didn't
in the
know
back of
when
my
it was
mind.
going to happen again.
Yeah, I just was poised that it might happen again, and that it might happen to me. And of course, it didn't happen again for the rest of the night. But I was like living on the edge the entire time. So I guess it made me realize that I don't really have a good attitude about it. Even like I can't really roll with it. It turns out I have a phobia.
Yeah, I hate it too. So
I mean, I don't think most people enjoy it, but I was just thinking about it. I was like, what's the level at which like I can engage with it and it's okay? Like, I don't even like it when it's like the audience is encouraged to like repeat back something or like
right.
Or like even like sing along, unless it's like really like if like the Holy Spirit has entered me and I'm really feeling it,
yeah,
like I will be ready to testify and I will sing along with your chorus. But I feel so awkward about being asked to participate in that.
So I think you just got to decide, right? If you're the person who's picked, which I'm a very stubborn person, so when this has happened to me in the past, I've just totally refused to participate, which really just kills everyone's vibe.
Yes.
So
yeah,
for the sake of like everyone else's time, You just have to lean into it.
So if you think about it as more of a public service than anything else,
because you would never want to. If he had picked you in the performance, you wouldn't want to ruin his performance
by saying
or
no.
draw attention to yourself by being, however, feeling like you didn't want to participate. Because really, that's like more of a selfish response. If you think about
you're
it.
right. You're right.
So then you just gotta like participate.
Well, okay. So I've actually seen you subjected to one particular moment of audience participation, which I just want to highlight just for a moment because I think it was one of the worst that I've seen happen because of the circumstances around it. You look like you don't even know what I'm about to say.
I think this is back.
Yes, it was very early in our relationship. I mean, I didn't even really know you.
Yeah.
But what happened was there was a particularly prominent cabaret performer that was represented by the agency that you and I both worked for. We went to the show. Yeah. And you were sitting at a table with like all your bosses and like some of our other coworkers. And I was there, but I was actually somehow, for some reason, I was at a different table. Like, yeah, I was at a different table. Whether I was there by myself or like somehow like wasn't able to be at like the company table.
Yeah.
And this cabaret person like basically singled you out, as she did with some of the other people. And it basically involved her, like, literally sitting on your face.
She sat on my face.
Like, putting her crotch directly on your face.
Yeah. I could smell the detergent that she used.
To wash her cat suit. And to me, that was a moment of just, like, this is the absolute worst. Because you have to, again, I think you were probably trying to be a good sport about it.
Yeah.
But it's both, like, humiliating, and you're also sitting at the table with, like, a bunch of people that you don't like, but that you have to work with
every day.
With
a client, choose a client that you have to like be nice to.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
Right. It was work related, so you couldn't just be like, please remove your
vagina was in my face for like an extended period of time.
It was actually quite.
She sang a song.
It was a whole song. It was an entire number. Yeah.
It's flooding back to me. Yes. Remember?
I can see the trauma in your eyes.
That was pretty bad. But yeah, I think you and I and people who are scared of participation just need to enter those places and just like be prepared to just participate, even if we'd rather be anywhere else on earth. But to think about it as not ruining everyone else's night. Right. Yeah. Instead of anything else.
More of an altruist, appealing to our better natures, basically. Yeah, no, that's good advice. I also had one other thing that I wanted to ask you about, which is your experience with using the ice skating rink.
Oh my God, I love it. So, in Brooklyn's Prospect Park, they have an ice skating rink that transforms into a roller rink in the summertime. So anyone in Brooklyn, if you like skating or roller skating, highly recommend. The prices are good. The facility is great.
Yeah, and it's actually brand new, so it's really...
There's a cafe attached. It's indoor,
it's like all the
outdoor.
Nostalgia of like the skate world experience of of being in like a sixth grader in 1995.
But designed as if someone in Brooklyn designed it.
Yeah, and new and clean and doesn't smell like a foot.
A good sound system, and it looks out over the lake of Prospect Park. It's very nice. And so in the wintertime with the skating rink, they have an indoor, a covered skating rink, and then it's connected to an outdoor skating rink. And this past week, I've been wanting to go for the past couple months, but this past week I just had, the sun was shining, it was a beautiful day, and I just walked past the rink, and there were 4 people there, and these very large rinks, and I paid my money, I got my shoes, and for 2 wonderful hours I just like skated in circles, and I'm here to tell you that 1, I'm a natural. And 2, I need to look into lessons, adult
a coach.
Lessons. Yeah, I need
like a Russian coach, preferably.
So
and a windbreaker.
I don't want to throw it out there too early, but I'm just saying that I'm toying with
Olympics 2035.
Yeah,
6 or whatever.
Maybe I want to be the oldest male figure skater. Figure skater. Ever in the Olympics. I don't feel
I'm really fascinated by your desire to take this on as like an adult hobby. Not because I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea. But I just think it's not like a normal path to like a new hobby. Even like a sport related thing, like generally if it's like, oh, I'm gonna like take up tennis or something, you know, a lot of people our age, but another thing that you're actually quite good at, by the way, but but like it's like one like ballet and like skating and like there's just certain things where it seems it's just like less conventional to like take that up as a 32-year-old, but I'm thrilled. I think that's awesome.
Well, you're hearing it here first. So
you were did you work on any like trying to have your feet leave the ice at all?
I was just trying to like have a nice smooth corners and arms. I was putting my arms out. And then I tried to skate backwards, but I need some help with that because I was watching some like 8-year-old girl who clearly had a couple lessons skate backwards, and I was just trying to emulate her.
You should have asked for her
not
help.
very much success. And then some sort of ice skating instructor near the end of the time that I was there, he came on the ice and he was spinning, and that just I couldn't wrap my mind around how to do that.
I also think there's probably some prep that you need to do off the rink before you just like kind of went for it on the ice. I don't know. That's just my feeling.
I mean, I was also in rental skates, which are hockey skates, so they don't have the toe pick.
Toe pick. It comes back to the cutting edge.
So I've also looked into buying my own pair of skates, which I know I will do at one point.
That's amazing. I love this, and I will be closely following this journey.
Yeah, so I also want to investigate are there any like, you know, older categories that you can skate like competitively?
You know what? I have to imagine
like a seniors division, like seniors golf. Why isn't there like a seniors skating division?
I'm sure there is. We'll have to look into it. And I'm sure that the field of competition is narrow and that you're going to crush it.
Thank you.
I mean, not that that's the intent, but I'm excited for you.
I'm going to...
I'll come and throw a teddy bear on the ice
more.
For you.
Thank you. I'm going to figure out how to do it, and just for fun. But then also, you know, I just want to investigate my family tree to see if I'm related to anyone in any other country that has no ice skating presence. Because that's my only hope of going to the Olympics.
Totally.
I can't be an American going.
Totally.
But
like if you have somebody back there who is like from like Togo or something.
Hey, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because I know that when you look at me, you think Togo.
I mean, that was just the first word that came to my mind. I'm bad with geography,
but there has
as
to be,
you know.
There has some country.
Our guest on this episode is friend of the show, Lola Milholland, an all-around brilliant woman and current noodle entrepreneur based in Portland, Oregon. I'm so happy that this is working out. This is our very first long-distance interview that we've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
So this is exciting.
Yeah, no kidding.
Let's jump right in if you don't mind. So, Lola, I know I met you briefly, I don't know if you remember, in 2014 when Amrita and I decided to drive across the country.
Of course.
Yes, and so it's very nice to speak with you again. And it seems like since then and now, a lot has happened in your life. There have been a lot of big changes, including what you just mentioned you were working on, which is your own company. And so, if you don't mind, I would love to hear a little bit about what it is, what it's called, what it is, how it's going.
Yeah, and how you decided to start it. I don't know, just any sort of genesis stories.
Totally, you bet. Okay, so the business is called Umi Organic. That's UMI, organic. Umi means ocean. And the name came to me through a combination of kind of inspirations. One is the idea of the connection between Portland, or the West Coast rather, of the United States, and Japan through the Pacific, and the way that the winds have traveled, and
trade winds,
the way that, all of that. So that's one. And then the other was that I met a Black Panther named Umi, and I heard his name and I loved the word.
I love that.
So that was kind of the inspiration for that name. We started the business in 2015 in terms of getting the trademark for the name, and then actually started doing business in 2016. So you guys were about a year early from when I jumped in to do this, but it had been percolating within me for a long time. I studied Japanese since I was 5 in the Portland public schools and traveled to Japan a lot and was really interested in Japanese food culture. And when Amrita and I went to college, I actually studied Japanese, and my focus was on Japanese cultural history.
Right. And actually she wrote a thesis on Kobe beef.
Yeah, exactly. I was obsessed with Japanese beef, not eating it so much, although that is delicious, but like what it means as a symbol, how the industry developed, how art and politics have used it as a totem, that kind of stuff. So anyway, I got a job after college.
Andrew has like such an interested face right now, so maybe send us a copy later.
It's a good one, I guess. So anyway, I was working for a nonprofit for a really long time, and after college, got a job there immediately after college. The economy crashed, and I held on tight. And the job was at a place called EcoTrust, and our focus was regional economies, especially economies that are based on the land. How can people make a better living than they often do, while treating natural resources well, and building long-term economic roots in their communities. So my focus was on food and farmers. But I always was thinking about Japanese food in Japan. I mean, I had studied it for so long. It was such a passion. I wrote for a magazine for a while, and my editor would always joke that I snuck like Japan into every story somewhere. So, and in my free time,
and this was for Edible Portland, right? By the way, that you wrote for?
Yeah. EcoTrust was publishing Edible Portland.
Okay.
So at home, I was making a lot of Japanese food. I started trying to make ramen noodles. I'd eaten amazing ramen in Japan. And now, ramen is really a phenomena here, but it wasn't at that time. So I was trying to make my own ramen noodles that replicated what I could get in Japan. And I had a friend, his mom, I've known him since I was a little kid. We studied Japanese together. His mom knew that I was doing that, and she recommended I take this ramen making workshop. And it was $1,000. Is one of the leading noodle scientists in the world.
Noodle scientist, hang on, by the way, is by far the best job title that I maybe have ever heard in my life.
His name's Gary Hill, and I think he might have one of the greatest jobs of all time. All this machinery you wouldn't even imagine for testing things like noodle springiness and, bite and all that stuff. Anyway, he was teaching a course here in Portland, and people were coming from all over the world, like, Argentina, Nigeria, Korea, Japan, LA, because they were interested in improving the quality of their ramen noodles. And it was, very industry focused, $1,000 course. And I convinced them to let me go in as a journalist. So I snuck in for free.
That's a great hack.
Yeah, I recommend it all the time, by the way, journalist or no. So they let me audit the class for free. I made my first instant noodles, which I didn't even know you could do. And I learned about
you prepared your own version of instant noodles that you can. That is crazy. I also did not know that was a thing that existed.
Yeah, I learned so much about noodles, and I was so into it. And I wrote an article about it, and I said, so we grow a lot of wheat in the Western United States, in Oregon, in Washington, Montana, Idaho, and we export an unbelievable amount of it to Japan. To our biggest export destination for Oregon, exports is Japan. And Portland is actually the largest wheat and barley export gate in the nation. Wheat is just like pouring through Portland on its way over to Asia. Oh, wow. And so I was like, wow, that's so wild. Here I am in a place that's growing the very wheat for the noodles I want, but it's all getting sent to Japan. And then I want noodles that good, I have to buy imported noodles that are coming back from Japan. Just bananas, And I thought, gosh, somebody should really make a noodle here using grains from, US that is a fresh noodle that's as good as a Japanese noodle, because I want to buy it. I want to eat it. And so I end my article being like, somebody should do this. It's a really good idea. Like waited for someone to do that, was like, well, who's going to do that? I was just sure that someone would recognize what a good idea it was. And then kept working at that. Really interested in the regional grain economy. Did a lot of work there, and over time was like, maybe I'm the one who's going to do that. Maybe it's me. And so after being at a job for like 8 years, it felt like I was ready for something new. And I decided to try to do this. And so I found a partner, a small business lawyer, one of my really good friends, to help me, and kind of left my previous job and decided to try this.
So,
so since then,
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
No, I didn't mean to
interrupt me at any point.
No. I was just saying that's just. I think you're probably carrying on to this, but like, I'm curious about like how the startup capital came to be, and like, you know, how did you manage to get this off the ground? Because obviously you had a amazing idea, and you're like, I see the market for this. I see like the pipeline for this, which is actually another level that I didn't know about when, in your conception of this idea, that you kind of had that insight into the production pipeline. But then what? Like, how did you actually like go from the idea to it being a real thing that you can buy in stores?
Yeah. Well, I will say that I still feel like the question of capital is looming over me at all times. So
Fair enough.
I haven't solved that one yet. But so the first thing that made this really possible for me is that I found a partner who owned a noodle manufacturing facility. And they had a lot of the machinery I would need. And there's no one doing organic noodles that I know of in the Northwest. And I said, I'm willing to do, you know, the marketing, the sales, the sourcing, help you go through organic certification, all of that. And so this really wonderful person named Michael Mai agreed to help me with production. So that was like the thing that made this possible, honestly, is that I didn't need an insane amount of capital to set up a production facility. And, you know, in the lingo of my industry, that they're called a co-packer. And I think people can have different kinds of relationships with those people. I happen to have a really close one with this one. We have an office next door, and we work really closely, and we overlap in a lot of ways. But I think that was the biggest piece, was that I didn't need to take out a huge loan in order to buy machinery and rent space and all that kind of thing. And then the second piece is that I was willing to work for free. So I had some savings. I have a fortunate situation where I live in the house I grew up in. When I decided to leave my job, my boyfriend got a much better job. And so we kind of cycled in and out of who was going to be a little bit of the breadwinner for a period of time. And I just like cultivated side hustles as hard as I could. So, you know, what else could I do to bring in some income while I explored this? So, you know, with some of my money and a little bit of, you know, family money, and then we did a Kiva loan, which is a pretty awesome thing. It allows you to get
lent to Kiva loans before. It's pretty awesome. It's like micro lending platform, basically.
Micro lending with zero interest.
Yeah.
So got a Kiva loan, and then won a competition for 10 grand. And so we're just like floating by right now. It is a slow growth model because you don't have a lot of cash. You can't make large leaps.
Sure.
You have to fund your own growth, and it means that growth can be slow. So that's kind of the situation that we're in, which is sort of okay by me because I feel like I'm putting myself through business school, and I have a really amazing woman working for us named Amanda Pliley, and she's brilliant, but I both didn't have a ton of background in this particular area. So I feel like we're both kind of going through business school. And so having things grow somewhat gives us room to make mistakes and correct them and learn from them. So it is a good model for where we are. It also is frightening because sometimes if you do have a good idea, and TBD if this one is, you cultivate the market, you do a lot of work, you can't grow quickly, so you don't. And then someone with a lot more money can come in and take advantage of that. That's kind of, I think, the risk of doing it the way that we're doing it. But I am not obviously risk averse because I did a startup business, and I'm like struggling my way through it in the best kind of way. But I'm not like totally interested in just like taking out an enormous loan and risking my home, which isn't even mine, and putting it all on the line to see, all for the noodles. So that's a sacrifice that I make. It's a risk that I'm taking.
Yeah. So that I understand. So you're up and running. What products are you currently? Do you have production for?
Yeah, for sure. So we do a fresh organic ramen noodle made with some local whole grain barley flour, and we sell it in grocery, like maybe 60 plus grocery stores in Oregon and Washington. It's just a single SKU. We've been trying to expand to some others in the grocery store, and I can tell you guys about that. It's been a challenge, but a good challenge. And then we have food service products. So we sell bulk noodles to restaurants and, school cafeterias, things like that. And then we have income stream through the farmers market, which is pretty robust in Portland. A lot of customers.
I imagine so.
So, and then at the farmers market, I think of the farmers market as an extension of our R&D. So we try out products there all the time. We try out new products, and I try to figure out the pricing, what people are willing to pay for them, what people like. So we sell a lot of different products at the farmers market. We've done lots of different sauces, broth bases, pickles, dumplings. Yeah, just playing around there.
So how do you balance your time? Well, I have a couple questions. One is how do you balance your time between all the business considerations that you have to think about, including marketing and reaching out, and versus product development versus the sourcing of all your raw material? How do you balance that out? And then my other question is, what do you do when you're overwhelmed with the whole thing and it feels like it's a sinking ship that you regret ever being involved? You regret knowing what a noodle is. What do you do then?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that the business pieces that have to be done take precedent, and that can be a bummer, because it means that long-term big vision stuff gets pushed to the side. So I'm glad we created the farmers market as a way to do R&D, but I wish we could put a lot more time and energy into R&D. But so much of my time just gets spent managing the day-to-day. And so it can be difficult to create the space to really put in the time for what you're trying to build for the future. So, in a given week, I'm spending, and I think this is a classic entrepreneur story, but I'm spending some time doing bookkeeping, more time than I expected I would be. And then, for a while, we were doing a lot of our own demos, which is a hugely time-consuming thing. I'm doing some prep for the farmers market. And then I'm trying to set aside time to do like long-term, sales predictions and trying to cultivate different partners for other production and kind of trying to manage our cash flow. And so things come in waves. Like if I get a lot of energy about one topic, I'll try to pour as much energy into it as I can. So rather than like, I don't have a weekly R&D time, or like a weekly schedule, like I'm just going to look at, ways of doing, like helping finance this business. I kind of do it
what
like
part of it is calling to you today versus another day.
Yes, right. Like how deep can I go? And when I get truly overwhelmed, I just stop working and I go do something totally different. Like, I feel like walking is my very good friend, long walks. And like weekends, like putting around on my friend's motorboat. That's my other really good friend.
Oh, that's nice.
There's like escape, a little bit of escape. I think it is amazing how the brain will work when you don't put your brain to something and help you solve problems. If you stop thinking about something in the,
which is sometimes so hard though, like when you're in the middle of it, like I it's very hard to like unplug, but definitely the long walks thing I think is like critical. It's just like some physical activity.
I have my cost of goods, and that's kind of the only thing I have control over, right? Like, I can't control what the distributor takes. I can't control what the grocer takes. So the only way I can reduce my own cost in the market, unless I was really powerful and I could, convince the grocer to take less, which I can't.
Is it to take less yourself?
Is to take less myself, right? But then I might just go out of business. Is squeeze my cost of goods as small as it can be, right? And I think that that's a reason that people often end up, trying to pay farmers as little as possible, right? Like looking for the cheapest suppliers for different things, because that's their one lever. And I do feel like we have a food economy based on not paying farmers adequately, and that's part of the reason.
So I want to ask a question about this specifically. So when you're saying about your cost of goods, are you sourcing from farmers, individual farmers?
Combo.
Okay.
I'm getting some of my flour from a distributor and some of it directly from farmers.
Okay. And is that distributor share with you where they're sourcing their product?
In my case, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I specifically chose a flour source that was transparent to me, but it's not often that way, Or I'll
definitely,
give you another,
for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I have I use some gluten in my noodles. I know how much everyone loves gluten, so we use added gluten, and I source that through a channel, and I don't know where that comes from. I mean, it's certified organic, but I'm not sure. That one's a mystery. And so there is lots of stuff like that. And I think we have prioritized with those main, with barley and with wheat, that we know the source. But, how large, will that always be available to us if we continue to grow? Possibly, if we're able to kind of champion that.
This really brings up an interesting concept. And as you mentioned, the Northwest is particularly good in this country, if there's any part in this country that's good at it, at local sourcing. Even the Portland public schools, I know, do a really good job of sourcing local, organic, fresh food. But, to your point, that packaging and that, finding someone who's able to put all of those pieces together in a package that is affordable to you, that is still a hurdle, right? So we've just now started across the country to put some effort into local, sort of not only just a farmer's market local, but as your company sort of illustrates, sort of a regional company that's doing packaged, interesting, good food that you can buy off the shelf in the grocery store, but you're still having these challenges of actually getting it produced. And I know that there's a nonprofit in New York that's sort of trying to work at this sort of thing, where it's like, how do we now get to a point where the production can also be done on a local scale that's affordable for people who are like yourself, who have small food companies, and also small, am I making sense? Like a small production facility.
Yeah.
No, you're spot on that. The way the market is built right now is that if you're small, you have to be hyper artisan, I think.
Yeah.
And then, or you're large, and to be somewhere in between, you need a whole lot of capital. And where's that going to come from? Because it's just built. I mean, I can't print less than 5,000 boxes.
Right.
And some of those kinds of discoveries have been oh my gosh. And then every time I want to print a box, I have to go through this crazy rigmarole, and submit it to a million different people. And it's just, there's so little flexibility in the system for people who are small.
So when someone walks into a grocery store and they see your product, or they see products like yours, and by that I mean a small, sort of regionally sourced, either packaged ingredient or product like yours, or something that's even fresh, like what would you hope, and to your point that pricing needs to dictate, of, as you've outlined for us, how pricing works, i.e. being the distributor and the grocery store and everyone needing to get their cut, such that you have to be priced at a certain place. What would you hope that people remember? And what I mean by that is, like, you go to the grocery store, and I know I go to the grocery store, and I'm going to buy the thing that's the most affordable, especially when I'm comparing it to the things that are on the shelf. But what should I really be thinking about when I'm looking at that shelf of ramen noodles, of ingredients? What would you hope that people would think about next time they're at the grocery store?
Yeah, I love that question. I also want you to know that you're cutting in and out a little bit. So
okay.
If I answer not the question you asked,
we'll cut you off and let you and correct you.
Okay, great, thanks. So this is what you're talking about, brings up a larger topic that I think is a really interesting and important one. So I'm going to jump off topic a little bit and then come back to it.
Beautiful.
And that's there's this larger question about equity and equity within the food system that is a really important conversation that a lot of people are having, without, and a lot of people have ideas for solutions, but there's the challenge of how can we make sure that food is affordable for people, right? And price is a really big deal. A lot of people don't have the money to spend on food that's expensive, and or what we might consider to be expensive, right? And then on the other side of that, there is, what are we paying to farm workers? What are we paying to farmers? Is there equity on that side of the food system, right? So that's one long continuous chain from one to the other. And I think we spend more time, and I do think this is very important, but thinking about, okay, is this food elite or not? And, being very concerned about making sure that food can be affordable for people. But then on the other side of that, I'm a small company and I'm making choices to pay farmers what I hope is a living wage and buying organic ingredients, because in a sense that actually allows that farmer to make more for their efforts, and pass that on to their farm workers or, in their choices on the land. And so I'm trying to support farmers in my region, so that they can continue doing what they do, which is so important. And that translates as a higher price on the shelf. And so that larger view of what it looks like, I feel like I don't want to put my foot in my mouth too much, but there are people who have the money to buy food from producers like me, and they still try to buy the cheapest possible thing, and that decision is not going to support. It's not going to support people like me, and I'm not going to be able to support regional farmers. And so I feel like hyper price sensitivity. Let me think about how I want to talk about this. I want to like, if you see a product on the shelf that's being made locally, first of all, if you're interested in it, if it's something that you found to be delicious, because that's number one, right? Don't you buy things because they taste good? Mm-hmm. You might spend the time to look them up, find out about them. I'm at farmers markets every week, or at grocery stores doing demos, or at events. You can actually meet me and talk to me and learn about what we're up to. So that's a benefit of having local companies who work around you. And then
it's like that sort of interpersonal connection, like a direct connection.
Truly. And then, I think the bigger thing I'm trying to get at is that when a company has insane scale, they can make things falsely cheap. They can make things so cheap. Sometimes I just can't understand how in the world anyone is getting paid along the supply chain for those products, you know?
Right.
And it's baffling that anyone could be making a good living at some of the prices of some of the food. And so sometimes when you pay more for food, it is an investment in your local community.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like an activism through purchasing power type of thing. And it kind of reminds me, although this is a totally like not actually related, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of the recent storm and stress in New York about like salon workers. And there was a big expose recently about, you know, that like, I can't believe we've all been just basically paying $4 for a manicure all this time, and at the expense of essentially supporting a slave labor culture.
Right.
Not even exaggerating, but and to realize that the pricing that you're paying for something has implications on the rest of that supply chain of in the case of the salon workers, it's very directly like, what if you're paying $4 for this manicure, what do you think that this woman who just spent an hour like scrubbing your feet is getting paid? And the answer is nothing. And sort of thinking about that, and that was something that I came to in a really harsh way of being like, okay, well, I'm like, I don't make a lot of money, so it's fine. I can, you know, I deserve to pay less for, you know what I mean? But kind of, I had that sort of come to Jesus moment around that industry where I was like, oh, yeah, I do have to think about what I pay and what the implications are of what I pay on the people who are providing that service in whatever industry it may be, whether it's the food industry or, which it quite frankly has quite a lot more stops on the supply chain than something like literally someone who's there providing that service directly.
Yeah, totally. And like, I think that we look at high price items and we think like maybe that's kind of, maybe people don't think this, but I was hinting at this earlier, like maybe they're just being greedy. Maybe they priced it that way because they just want to make a lot of money, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What are the costs of a small business? What does it really cost to be? It's expensive to be small.
Right. I mean, you look at, you know, I can only speak for myself, but I look at a product on the shelf. I'm like, oh, look at that marketing. Look at that like fancy package, you know, all of these things. But it's important to remember that the government has policies in place that subsidize certain parts of our agricultural economy. So when things are cheap, it's not always because a large industry figured out how to make it cheap. It's oftentimes because the government artificially makes it cheap through their policies, and that's just a fact for corn, for milk, for even wheat, for like a lot of things. And that's important for us to remember when we're looking at smaller companies that are producing better food that is represented in a price point that is higher. So to Amrita's point about kind of putting your money where your mouth is, that's something that I'm sort of speaking to myself when I'm speaking about, when I'm, there are products I pull off the shelf that I want to buy, and then they might be $1 or $2 more expensive than tell myself I'm willing to do. But what would it mean if all of us who did that actually decided to purchase those local ingredients? Much like, it's just like, what would that mean? What would that mean for people like you, small suppliers who were then able? What I have to remember, I guess, is what I'm saying, is that a small supplier who sells a lot becomes a medium supplier. A medium supplier who sells a lot becomes a big supplier. And if you have someone whose philosophy matches with your own, and then you match that with the dollars that you're willing to spend, eventually you could get to a better price point if all of us just bought the damn product.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly.
I've really enjoyed over the years hearing about some of your mushroom adventures, and I wonder if you might tell, because Andrew doesn't know anything about this. I just feel like there's some really interesting things about the culture around mushroom people and mushroom hunters that most people probably don't know about.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was going to say at the beginning, I was talking about how I like to walk or like boat or whatever, but my very favorite thing of all is to go mushroom hunting. because you're like in the forest, and so there's the first best thing. And then you're like looking for, my favorite mushrooms to hunt are chanterelles and hedgehogs, because I'm not that advanced as a hunter, and also because they're like a beautiful color, and so they like kind of glimmer on the forest floor, and you're like chasing after them one after another. It feels like being in a video game, like the best possible video
Yeah,
game,
you're like a little Zelda person, like running through and like.
I've never heard a more Portland, Oregon thing said in my life.
Okay. So anyway, at some point, I met this woman named Amy Peterson, who I love. She's a security guard at Costco, and she's also second generation Japanese American. And she loves to go matsutake hunting. And matsutakes are very valuable mushrooms in Japan. They say they smell like cinnamon and stinky feet or whatever. And
yes,
they know. You're like, oh, yum. So it's matsutake hunting is sort of I think it's next level mushroom hunting, because often they don't even appear above ground. You're just like looking for these little tufts, and everything in the forest looks like that to me. So you have to use your sense of smell and also your memory about where they grow and what plants they have relationships with. And so I love to go hunting with Amy, because she's like this older woman. She's always wearing whatever free shirt she got from Costco that's the brightest color that she can find. So like Reese's Peanut Butter Cup t-shirt or sweatshirt, or Snickers or something. And then she's this tiny old woman, and she just like races through the forest, and I like to chase after her. And like in that instance, the pleasure is actually just being with her and chasing after her. And I've gone with her every year for a long time now. And if she's not there, I just don't even think I would know what to do about what to do myself. Because I still can't find matsutakes very well.
Well, and I also am like really interested in how like territorial and I know, odd, I guess, some of those folks that are about like, this is my domain, and it's sort of a closed circuit community.
Yes and no. Like, I found people to be more open than I expected them to be. But if you were just to go to the farmer's market and be like, hey, where did you get those? They would be like, I'm never telling you, Amy has this funny story where like she was taught how to matsutake hunt by this awesome guy named Liki Shimada. And he's from a generation of, there used to be way more matsutakes up on Mount Hood. But there are others of his generation. And she says like one of them, like on his deathbed, she was like, tell me where your matsutake spot is. And he was like, I'll never tell you.
Oh my God. I'll take it to the grave.
And this other woman was like on her deathbed, it was like, milepost 35.
Okay. Last question, because I know it's late. Because it was promised that we were going to talk about Prince, I feel that we should really talk about Prince for just a minute.
Yeah. I was just going to say that, Amrita, I haven't seen you since he died.
I know. It was a hard day.
I feel like we need to have like a morning period together and do some karaoke. Yes. Prince is my favorite karaoke because it's all impossible.
Impossible. It's impossible.
It's impossible.
So true.
My favorite to try to do is that song, The Beautiful Ones. Mm-hmm. You know that one?
Yep.
And he says baby like 1,000 times, but every time it's like said differently and with so much intensity and passion. And I want to say, when I try to do it, it does not turn out well.
I haven't even witnessed this, and I'm like, I can't wait to witness this. It's amazing.
I love that song so much. I love Prince.
This was an early bonding point for us, and I guess you should know that we're all among friends here. Andrew has basically worshipped Prince for his entire life, and in fact keeps a framed photograph of Prince. This is maybe not a widely known fact. A framed photograph of Prince on his bedside table, like always.
Always. Years and years I've had it.
Well, I want to see you karaoke. I think the three of us need to sing some Prince to each other.
Yes. That would make me, nothing would make me happier.
Really.
Well, Lola, I don't want to keep you any longer. I could ask you hours and hours of questions around the business and food and your thoughts on all of it.
And hopefully we will get a chance to do so next time either we're in Portland or you're here, which will hopefully happen this year.
Totally. Yeah, no, let's you and I just do that together.
Yeah.
But I do want to encourage everyone, next time you're in the grocery store and you see some good ramen, or you see a box of something that is local and you think, I'm not going to pay an extra $1, I just want you to think again.
Think about Lola. And
just think about Lola.
No, but also before we sign off, also I want to get on the record. How can people find you? What's your social media stuff? And I know you have some stuff associated with Umi, so please put that out there.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And so you can follow us on Instagram at Umi Organic. And then
that's
we
UMI Organic.
Exactly. And then if you're in Oregon or Washington, you can buy our products at a lot of grocery stores. So head to our website, which is www.umiorganic.com. And there's a map of all the stores where you can find the noodles. And I am being sincere when I say, if you buy the noodles and you make them, you should write me personally and tell me how it turned out. Like, I want to know how it was, how cooking it was, what you made. Always curious about that. So yeah, umiorganic.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Happy ramen making.
Thank you. Happy podcasting.
Bye.
Bye.
And as always, you can find us on our website or on Instagram at VJ and Stevens, VIJAY and Stevens with a PH. Till next time.